On September 6, 1620, the Mayflower left England carrying 102 passengers. 66 days later, it dropped anchor off Cape Cod, hundreds of miles off course, and that first winter killed half of them. The 53 who survived built Plymouth colony, had children, and those children had children. 400 years of that compounding produced a number almost impossible to believe. An estimated 35 million Americans, more than 1 in 10, descend from those passengers. From one ship, one crossing, one brutal winter. 10 of those surnames are in this video. Some famous, some surprising. One belonging to a man who wasn't a pilgrim at all, a hired soldier who became the most important person aboard. Is one of these names in your family tree? Watch for your own. Number 10. Billington. John Billington was the troublemaker. He argued with the captain, challenged the Mayflower Compact, and his son nearly blew up the ship firing a musket beside an open barrel of gunpowder. In 1630, Billington shot a man dead over a quarrel and was hanged, the first murder execution in Plymouth's history. But here's the twist. That same son climbed a tree soon after landing and spotted what he thought was a sea, actually a freshwater pond that still carries the family name today, Billington Sea, and President James Garfield descends from that same troublesome family. Number 9. White. William and Susanna White gained a second son before they ever set foot on land. Their boy, Peregrine, was born on the ship in the harbour, the first English child born to the Mayflower passengers in the New World. His father died that first winter, but Peregrine lived to 83, long enough to watch the wilderness become a real colony. And his widowed mother then married another passenger, Edward Winslow, in the first marriage ceremony ever held in Plymouth. Number 8. Winslow. Edward Winslow was the diplomat, the most educated man aboard, trusted with the colony's most delicate job, the alliance with the Wampanoag leader, Massasoit. When Massasoit fell gravely ill, Winslow nursed him back to health, buying Plymouth years of peace. He also wrote the only surviving first-hand account of the first Thanksgiving. Not Bradford Winslow. Without his letter describing that 1621 harvest feast, we'd have no eyewitness record of the event that became the tradition. Number 7. Warren. Richard Warren did something unusual. He came alone. He left his wife and 5 daughters in England, survived that killing first winter, built a house, and waited 3 full years until it was safe to send for them. His patience paid off across the centuries. Warren is one of the most numerous Mayflower lines of all, and President Franklin Roosevelt descended from him through the same Delano family that gave FDR his middle name, a president who led America through the Depression and a world war, traced back to a man who crossed alone and waited 3 years for his family. Number 6. Brewster. William Brewster was the elder spiritual leader of the separatist congregation, and the closest thing aboard to a man who touched real power. He'd studied at Cambridge and worked for a Secretary of State to Queen Elizabeth, close enough to the throne to have been near the signing of the death warrant for Mary, Queen of Scots. He walked away from it to lead a band of dissidents into hiding, then Holland, then across the ocean. Around 53 when he sailed, he led Plymouth's religious life until his death, the last survivor of the original congregation. Number 5. Hopkins. Stephen Hopkins is the most astonishing passenger aboard because he'd already been to America once. 11 years earlier, he sailed for Jamestown, was shipwrecked on Bermuda for nearly a year, and that wreck is thought to have inspired Shakespeare to write The Tempest. He survived it, lived in Virginia, sailed home, then chose to cross again, the only passenger who'd ever seen the New World before. When the others wondered what they were sailing toward, Hopkins already knew. Number 4. Standish. Here's the man who wasn't a pilgrim at all. Miles Standish was a professional soldier, hired for one reason. Someone had to defend the colony. He had no religious stake in Plymouth whatsoever. And then his wife died that first winter, and Standish stayed anyway. He built the colony's defenses and led every armed confrontation it faced. A soldier with no reason to stay became one of Plymouth's most consequential founders, and his descendants include Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself as a man to fight in the Revolution. Number 3. Howland. This is the single most incredible survival story aboard. John Howland, a young servant, came up on deck during a mid-Atlantic storm when everyone had been ordered below. The ship lurched and he went straight over the side into the freezing ocean, and in 1620, a man overboard in the North Atlantic was a dead man. Except Howland caught a rope trailing in the water and held on, and the crew hauled him back. He lived, married Elizabeth Tilley, an orphan teenager who'd lost her whole family that winter, and they had 10 children. The descendants of the man who grabbed that rope include Humphrey Bogart, Alec Baldwin, Christopher Lloyd, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Number 2. Alden. John Alden was a barrel maker hired for the voyage, not a believer, not fleeing anything, just a craftsman with a job. When the ship prepared to sail home, Plymouth asked him to stay. He did, and married Priscilla Mullins, an orphan who'd lost her entire family that first winter. That decision made him one of the most prolific ancestors in American history. Alden and Priscilla have more documented descendants than any other Mayflower couple. Millions of Americans, including 2 presidents and Marilyn Monroe. A hired barrel maker who stayed for a woman seeded a bloodline running through the whole country. Number 1. Bradford. And it all comes back to Bradford. William Bradford lost his own wife in the harbor before he ever stepped ashore. She fell overboard and drowned while the ship lay at anchor. He became governor of Plymouth and served across many terms for around 30 years, and he wrote it all down. His manuscript of Plymouth Plantation is the foundational record of the whole Mayflower story, handwritten across decades. Without it, we'd know almost nothing of those first years. His descendants read like a roll call of America: Clint Eastwood, Noah Webster, who wrote the first American dictionary, and Julia Child. So what does the blood actually say? For 400 years, these lines married outward, scattering the original surnames into hundreds of other families. That is why 35 million people descend from just 102 passengers, and why the names became the roots of an enormous family tree. But here is the honest part. A shared surname is not proof of a shared line. Millions carry these names with no connection, and millions of true descendants carry none of them. Finding your name here means you should look, not that you already know. The Mayflower Society and Family Search both keep free, searchable records. The surname opens the door. The evidence walks you through it. If one of these names is in your tree, you are not just watching this history, you are a living piece of it. Subscribe and we will keep tracing the bloodlines that built America, one name at a time.